Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the regular board meeting to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to ask Ms. Felicia Ibarra to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Ms. Ibarra.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let me announce the substitution. Ms. Barbara Basil for Vice Chancellor LaQuia Shelton. Dr. Mary Lou Mosley for Paul Dale, President of PVC. Those are our substitutions for today. Student life reports, Estrella Mountain Community College. Ms. Ibarra, it's you again.
Good evening, Governing Board members, Chancellor Dr. Harper Marinick, CEC, and distinguished guests. My name is Felicia Ibarra, and I am a student ambassador in the Office of Student Life and Leadership. Along with me tonight is Christian Rono, who is also a student ambassador at Estrella Mountain Community College. Tonight, we will be talking to you a little bit about the Student Union, Student Life and Leadership, and past and upcoming events.
The Office of Student Life and Leadership provides an environment which fosters the social, academic, professional growth, and the developmental growth of the student as well. Student Life and Leadership is housed in the EMCC Student Union. It's the central hub for students. We serve over 400 students, faculty, staff, and community members on a weekly basis. Our student life services include campus tours, student food pantry, discount bus passes, campus managed posting boards, leadership development, child care assistance, Popcorn Thursday, and student retention. Currently, EMCC has over 20 active clubs and organizations. Student clubs and organizations have sponsored over 82 campus-based programs and community service-based programs this academic year. Some events from our clubs and organizations include Phi Theta Kappa had their first responder and public safety awareness day. Sports Club had their group day hike and a soccer match. And Black Student Union had showed a documentary called The 13th and had a discussion for Black History Month. Women's Rising and the Male Empowerment also had membership induction ceremonies in February. Many clubs and organizations volunteered together to support various campus district events. Some of the past programs and events from our Student Life and Leadership Office include Student Appreciation Day. The basis of Student Appreciation Day includes Student Life got to hand out drinks and food for students to give them a break from hardcore studying and just going all out for their finals. It also gave Student Life a chance to provide 600 students with campus initiatives and programs. Student Life has had 6 fall semester coffee talks. Over coffee and donuts, students are able to speak on questions, direct concerns, straight to EMC administrators. Administrators not only engage with students, but also gave students campus updates and district updates as well.
At Estrella Mountain Community College, the Summer Success Institute was launched in July of 2016 with 33 participants. The Institute provides first-year students with a jumpstart to help get you into that school groove, which it gives you the college experience. Engaging and dynamic experiences, students learn to successfully navigate college environment. During the Institute, it consists of 4 3-hour sessions held in July. Some areas of focus are campus resources, community skills, academic success strategies, and leadership development. During the fall semester, 80% of students who participated in Success Fair or Success Institute completed with a C or better, and 100% went from the fall to spring semester. In March, Student Life will be collaborating with the Service Learning and Civil Engagement to facilitate EMCC's second alternative spring break. EMCC has been recognized as a 2017 Priceless Partner for Homeward Bound. In my personal student experience, it was amazing and somewhat life-changing to be able to help create homes for those who may not have had a home before, and also networking with those around. Fitness and Wellness Service Learning educated students on eating cost-efficient and healthy meals, demonstrated no equipment, no cost exercises, and provided healthy choices for EMCC's student food pantry. Students conducted an awareness campaign about the substance abuse risk factors. Students also pledged to engage in at least one healthy habit that supports resiliency to substance abuse.
Wellness in the classroom incorporates healthy habit goal settings in regular assignments in academic classes. The students' pursuit of healthy goals becomes their homework. This engages students in healthy habits that are correlated with improved academic progress, as well as lifelong well-being.
This morning, starting at 9 a.m., was the kickoff of our Student Success Fair. It contains the I Will Graduate campaign, which helps students with their individual, academic, and career goals. We are expecting 1,200 students through the course of the event, which continues tomorrow. In March, we are going to be having our second alternative spring break, followed by the 25th anniversary gala in April. This concludes our presentation. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you both very, very much. Comments, questions? Mr. Saar.
Estrella Mountain's a long way from my home, but it's worth the drive. It's one of our newest campuses, and I'll be out there on Friday and looking forward to their hospitality and the uniqueness of that particular campus. So, congratulations on a great year so far.
I thought certainly you were going to be there on Thursday for Popcorn Thursday. Yeah. Further discussion? If not, the next item is Emeritus Awards. Acting President Haynes.
President Gutierrez, I'd like to ask Nancy Navarrete to come to the podium. She's the chair of our counseling department and will present the award.
Ms. Navarrete.
President Gutierrez, members of the board, Dr. Harper Marinick, members of CEC and guests, my name is Nancy Navarrete. I'm the chair of the counseling department at Phoenix College. I'm here to present retired counseling faculty Pat McIntyre the Emeritus Distinction Award. Patricia served 22 years at Phoenix College as a dedicated employee. Throughout her years of service, Pat worked on student success programs in the district and worked on many initiatives for Native American students. She expanded the American Indian Studies program, developed AIS and CPD courses, co-wrote and developed the Hoop of Learning program that was piloted at Phoenix College and expanded throughout the district. She started the Food Box program and bus program at Phoenix College that still continue for our students. She has been recognized by the state of Arizona, City of Phoenix, Maricopa County, and President Clinton for her work with special programs and the Native American community. Throughout her career, she provided outstanding counseling services to support student learning and academic success. It is my honor to present this award to you tonight, Pat. Congratulations.
Thank you. I loved working in Maricopa. I did work at over 6 of the campuses besides Phoenix College, and I had started as a part-time faculty after leaving the state of Arizona, where I was working on Indian water rights. And I just enjoyed my time so much. To get an award for doing something that you love is miraculous, and it's wonderful. And I miss it. I miss it. I miss the students. I miss teaching. I miss counseling. I miss the diversity. I miss being involved. And I think it's so important that we're all involved every day of our lives. I'm still recording stuff for the multicultural class that I haven't taught in 2 years. So, because it's just so exciting. And it's just so exciting to see what's happening in the world today and to keep up with it. And thank you very much. Again, you're giving me an honor for something that I loved doing. Thank you.
Dr. McIntyre. Dr. McIntyre, congratulations to you. Thank you very, very much for your service to us. The next item is citizen interim. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the governing board. I have the honor of introducing the president of the Salt River Pima-Maricopa Indian community, President Delbert Ray. President Ray.
Mr. President, members of the board, Chancellor Harper-Marinick, CAC members and guests, my name is Delbert Ray, and I'm the president of the Salt River Pima-Maricopa Indian Community. It is my honor to be here tonight to share the tribe's support of the Scottsdale Community Cloud Song Project. Scottsdale Community College has been located within the Salt River community since the 1960s. Many of our community members have had the opportunity to attend SCC, graduate from SCC, and go on to a 4-year degree and expanded career options. The relationship between the community and SCC has been quite a journey over the last 5 decades, and I am pleased to acknowledge Dr. Jen Gaylor, her staff's commitment to working with our tribal membership to offer new, creative, and tailored services. Some examples of our successful partnership include the Junior ACES program, which started in 2007, focusing on bringing middle-aged community member youth to Scottsdale Community College for enrichment programs during the summer. To date, over 570 community members have participated in this program. The 35 credit hour tribal court advocate certificate program that has 21 students prepared to complete the program in May of this year, a very valuable program. Many of our community members, our employees, and even our council members improve their health by working out at the Scottsdale Community Award-winning Fitness Center. And as stated, I am here to specifically address and support the Scottsdale Community College Cloud Song Project. The 1967 lease between the community and SCC states that the Maricopa County College District will create a cultural center for all members on the SCC campus. The Cloud Song Project satisfies this lease requirement and will serve to enhance the welcoming campus environment for our community and 17 other tribal communities that send their members to SCC to further their education. The Cloud Song building will be focused on business education. Over the years, SCC Business Department purpose building was repurposed for other uses. The Cloud Song building will enhance the educational importance of business at SCC. I can speak from the community's goals of creating new economic ventures to improve and secure the future of our people. The Cloud Song project directly benefits and multiplies the tribe's goals of self-sufficiency. Our tribal community has been an innovator in this valley for time immemorial, and the Cloud Song project will be our next generation's launch pad for creative ideas for the fast-paced, technologically centered world of today. The community continues to look to SCC, Dr. Gaylor, and her team as a partner for this project and for the educational betterment of 10,350 plus members of the Salt River community. Thank you for this opportunity to address this body tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Ray. President Ray, thank you for the extraordinary relationships that this community college district has had with your community, and I hope they continue for another 100 years.
I'm sure that it will.
Thank you,
Yes.
President Ray. Next, it's Mr. Mark Hiegel. Mr. Hiegel is, I believe, President and CEO of the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Hiegel.
That's correct. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here tonight. Just about my whole life has been involved in and or about business. My father was the CEO of a Fortune 50 company. I received my BBA from the University of Wisconsin, my MBA from ASU, and I always wanted a competitive edge over my peers. Business is competitive, just like schools and business schools are competitive. I wanted to go to the schools that had highly competitive programs, facilities, and faculties. Scottsdale Community College needs that same competitive edge. That's why I'm here to speak on behalf of SCC and the need for the new Cloud Song building tonight. The school needs the new space to stay competitive to enhance our students' learning experience and the teachers' teaching experience. It will keep kids coming to SCC. My 20-year-old son is one of those students at SCC right now. This allows him and a number of students a greater opportunity to move on to other Arizona universities. Because of the quality and student support in SCC's business programs, students choose to start their bachelor's degree at SCC, and they will be well prepared for these other universities. In addition, the number of business majors at WP Carey has grown significantly, which has in turn attracted many more students to its programs. More than 10 years ago, the SCC Business Department occupied its own building. However, as you know, it was repurposed and the department has been temporarily housed in another building with several other occupational programs. The department lost almost 50% of their classroom space and had to reduce its course offerings. With its own building, the department has a much higher potential to grow its enrollment, as 6 of the new classrooms will be dedicated to business education. All these factors will help strengthen our state's workforce. This helps keep our graduates in Arizona. This helps keep the 1,100 businesses that I represent happy, and that's important to me. Those representatives are tens of thousands of employees in the greater Scottsdale and surrounding areas. They keep our economy moving, they keep our taxes lower, they make this a great place to live and work. The new SCC building will allow the department to increase its community outreach and recruitment efforts. It will also provide us a more effective avenue for showcasing the work and accomplishments of our current and of our former students. Please support us, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Hiegel. Thank you very, very much. And I congratulate President Gaylor and the Scottsdale Community College for finally meeting an obligation that we committed to in the 1960s. Thank you, President Gaylor. The next item on the agenda is the Chancellor's report. Chancellor Harper-Marinick.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez, members of the board. Tonight, I have two presentations. The first presentation is an update on the work of the Transformation Task Force, and I am going to ask Ms. Darcy Renfro to make that presentation so that the board is aware of activities that have occurred since the last regular board meeting when the resolution was adopted.
Ms. Renfro.
Thank you, President Gutierrez, members of the board, Dr. Harper-Marinick, members of the CEC, and guests. My name is Darcy Renfro, and I am the Chief of Staff for the Chancellor's Office. And as the Chancellor indicated, I have an update on the Transformation Task Force. She has asked me to staff that task force and manage activities on a very aggressive timeline as set forth in your resolution in January. The timeline we've officially kicked off last week on February 22nd, the ad hoc task force committee, and I'll run through, have a slide that shows you who is on that task force. And a final recommendation for the task force to the Chancellor for her consideration is scheduled for April 7th. So it's a very aggressive series of meetings starting this Friday and then continuing through April 7th with an additional week set aside if there is more time needed that will enable her to present her plan to this board on April 24th. The structure essentially is to structure the task force. There are roughly 20 members of this task force, and we need to create committees for task force members to join and really break up the work because there's a lot to accomplish in task force members. Availability wouldn't be is productive if we had them meeting every week for the next 9 weeks. So we have committees on student access success, workforce responsiveness. These are short form titles, resources, efficiency and collaboration, and then leadership and governance. The task force will meet every Friday morning from 9 to noon, and 1 hour will be set aside for public comment, and we will then reconvene the following week during midweek to discuss recommendations in a deliberation internal meeting of the committee and staff. The design principles for this task force and part of their charter are built from the resolution itself to focus primarily on these issues. Student success is a primary driver of system stability, empower the system to be more agile and responsive to workforce and employer needs, incentivize enhanced use of resources, efficiency, and collaboration, and deploy an agile leadership structure to enhance community connection. Our values also from the resolution are that we are making data-driven decisions and that we consider, the task force consider all benefits and drawbacks of any proposed changes, and that we have transparency and inclusion. The charter this is a lot of words, but I wanted to include the full charter, and I believe you all have copies of the charter. What we are asking from the task force and really the scope of work being very focused on system and organizational regulations and strategies, as well as structural and leadership changes. We are not asking the task force to get involved in processes and services and at that level, and have outlined for them what the expected outcomes for the system as a whole and the member colleges would be, and what to keep in mind as they deliberate on each of those 4 categories. These are the members, 2 presidents, 2 chancellors, 2 faculty, council representatives, 2 classified staff, 2 students. We actually have 3 students. 1 is an alternate, and we'll most likely have 3 of them attending the full task force meetings. and 7 community members that are geographically distributed, so that we had representation from the communities around the colleges as well as all the colleges themselves in some form or fashion. Format, I discussed data presentations from staff, discussion, public comment on each Friday morning meeting, and then Tuesday or Wednesday, the committee will deliberate and start to formulate recommendations when possible. We'll be running a lot of parallel processes as each week we take on a new topic. We have integrated outreach and communications into the process and launched a website last week on the transformation that includes an opportunity for public comment via the website as well as public comment during the meetings themselves. The meetings are being held in this room, and so for those who cannot attend the meetings in person, will be able to comment via the website, and we will post minutes of the meeting by 5 p.m. the following Tuesday, and we'll also be posting agendas 24 hours in advance. That's what the website looks like. That can be found on, if you go into maricopa.edu, there is a tab that should lead people pretty easily to the task force that'll include members, committees, schedules, public comment, and minutes. And that's the summary. Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions? Mr. Saar?
I just think a great start to this. I look forward to April, of course. There's a lot of work in between now and then. So I know that board members can attend if they wish and have the time. So I look forward to some of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Saar. All the meetings are public meetings by design, so anyone is welcome to attend. Thank you.
Other questions or discussion? If not, thank you, Ms. Renfro. Chancellor.
Thank you. The next report is at the last month's board meeting. I mentioned that we would be sharing information with the board and the public on enrollment management and some of the activities in progress. Is a pretty high level presentation, and Dr. Dale, President, Interim Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost, Dr. Paul Dale, will make the presentation, and then we welcome your comments and questions.
Dr. Dale.
President Gutierrez, members of the board, Chancellor Harper-Marinick, CEC, and members, guests, it is my pleasure to make a very timely presentation given the deliberations of the Budget and Planning Committee that preceded this meeting. So I'm pleased to provide a very high-level presentation, primarily looking at system-level efforts around enrollment management. And I think all of you know enrollment management is a multifaceted experience which includes recruitment, retention, and how and when we offer our courses. Tonight's presentation will focus primarily on things that we're doing at the system level that's really geared towards the recruitment of new students. We will come back at a later date to talk more deeply about those activities related to the retention of students, which we know is equally, if not more important, element of enrollment management. I would also be remiss if I didn't recognize that each college has a strategic enrollment management plan, and that each college has worked diligently during these last 5 years. In some cases, 8 out of the 10 colleges have experienced an enrollment decline through very hard work, both with recruitment and retention, to encourage and to promote enrollment stability within our institutions. And so tonight's presentation will also talk a little bit about how the two meet in terms of the intersection between what colleges do and what I think we can begin to do at a system level to really begin to capture future enrollment. I might suggest that at a future, perhaps work session, we can go into a deeper dive around some of the challenges around enrollment management. So my presentation tonight has 3 parts. One, I'm going to provide a little bit of enrollment context in terms of some of the national information. I'm going to talk about some of the pipelines of which we're tapping into for new students, and then give you some examples of the kinds of things that we're doing at a system level to begin to make a dent on recapturing some of the students that have been lost. And then certainly would be happy to answer any questions as we move forward in this conversation. So I wanted to provide a little bit of the national perspective about community college and 4-year enrollment. You can see from 2020 to 2014, there was growth both in the 4-year market and in the 2-year market. The growth in four-year schools was about a 44% growth. The growth in the two-year environment during that period of time was about 22% growth. And as we've all known, the Maricopa Community College has experienced their highest enrollment in 2010, 2011, which corresponds with that chart right there. I wanted to share this slide because it's projected nationally for community colleges to grow by the year 2025 at about a 22% enrollment growth clip. So that may serve as an inspiration or an aspiring target for us as we look at our enrollment growth moving forward between now and 2025. I shared this chart with you during the monitoring report board in November. This is the chart, or graph that shows the correlation between the unemployment rate in Maricopa County and our enrollment spike. So you can see the blue line there indicates the peak unemployment period, which corresponds or correlates almost exactly with our peak enrollment. We all know that that's a national indicator that as folks are out of work, they tend to come back to school. Once they go back to work, they tend not to go to school. So that is certainly one of the reasons that explains the enrollment decline, along with a number of other factors, including flat and declining high school enrollments in our Maricopa County. The population growth, as we all know, lessened over the last 4 or 5 years. But again, I shared that and want to kind of come back to that in terms of context. And then lastly, in terms of the larger context, is just wanted to illustrate too, if you pull out the aberration of the recession, you can see pre-recession, 08-09, we're at about 70,000 footsie. And then in FY16, we're at about 72,000 footsie. So actually, if you pull out the aberration for the recession, we're slightly ahead of where we were prior to the recession. Again, just trying to create some greater context around our overall enrollments. So now what I'd like to do is move into a couple areas where we're beginning to take a much greater systemic look at pipelines for students. And I might interject right now is that I've been in higher education now over 30 years and started out in student affairs. And I can tell you that in 2017, the way we're going to attract and recruit students is significantly different than the way we did 20 years ago. With the advent of the World Wide Web, with social media, with some significant larger systemic tools, I will just share candidly with you is that Maricopa is at a crossroads now in terms of having the fortitude and the resources and the ability to install and to stand up some systems that will support the colleges. So what we're going to try to share throughout this is that intersection between systemic things that we can do at a larger system and how colleges can interject with that. So I'm going to walk through a couple populations. Obviously, the first low-hanging fruit really is our early college programs. And again, each college to a certain degree is attempting to recruit those students to matriculate or continue to work into a Maricopa Community College. There is one box that's missing up here. We don't have a number on that. That's also our students who are concurrently enrolled, students who actually come on campus after school. So these are some pipelines that we feel that there is some low-hanging fruit in terms of systemic outreach to these students to move beyond the 12 credits, 15 credits that they would be earned in those early college programs, and we think that that's a wonderful first pipeline. The second pipeline is our students who applied for financial aid, the free admission for federal financial aid, FAFSA. And this is a slide that demonstrates these numbers come from 2015, 2016. These were students who had completed and been awarded a financial aid. In this particular case, 9,000 students eventually generated 90,000 credit hours potential footsie. So at any one given point, through our use of a CRM, and I'll talk more about that in a second, we now have a way to scale up to really track the number of financial aid students that have both applied for financial aid, who are awarded for financial aid, and who are not enrolled in terms of taking advantage of that financial aid. This is a population, an example where we can have a system-level intervention in terms of mass outreach, whether that be through email or through our contact center or through text messaging or whatever, to really convert those students who, in fact, are fully able to go to school in terms of having the aid but have not done so. And so, again, this is another population, a given sample year, and we've got some additional data around that we're going to begin to tap into that as well. I mentioned we stood up, if you will, using the jargon, our CRM, our Customer Relation Management System, earlier this year. That is a sophisticated database that allows us to track students from an inquiry point of view, to a prospect point of view, to an applicant point of view, to an enroll point of view. And this is a snapshot in time to show you the power of a CRM in terms of when you look at it from a systemic point of view versus college by college by college. So, and I don't know exactly when this snapshot was taken, but in this one particular report, we had 20,000 students in the system as an inquiry, an additional 30,000 students who had actually taken the first step to create their MEID, which is the first step in the admissions process. An additional 48,000 had applied, 28,000 that had been admitted, and ultimately then 38,000 had enrolled. So you can see now that we have access to, and again, we can disaggregate this data by ethnicity, by age, by college, in terms of a more planful, thoughtful outreach to really begin to convert this. This is really what we're calling our low-hanging fruit. And again, I would argue to you that we don't have the capacity right now, either at the system level or at individual college level, but it is critical when you start using a CRM tool. You don't want to have that kind of prospects in a database and not have the resources to actually act on and follow up on that. So again, I think this is a huge opportunity, low-hanging fruit that we can now manage on a very large level, and we're in the process through the good work of the student affairs folks to really begin to, again, integrate this both at the college level and at a system level. So again, this is some low-hanging fruit that we're going to tap into as well. Under the direction of the chancellor earlier this year, in terms of requesting that we clean up, if you will, or improve the front door experience, we have over the last 3 weeks stood up our brand new student admissions interface tool, and that will it is live right now, and to a certain degree it's going through kind of an incremental testing process. Next week that will be put out there as our live tool. This tool will actually change our online admissions process from about a 45-minute experience that wasn't necessarily very pleasurable to something that I believe can be done in 10 to 15 minutes in terms of easing that first step for students to self-admit as a prospective student. So we're very pleased that this is in process and moving forward. One of the other things that, and again, looking at a systemic way, I mentioned to you that enrollment management is kind of the intersection of three parts: recruitment, retention, and how and when we deliver our product, if you will, our courses, our learning experience. So we're really taking a page out of Rio Salato's playbook, and I'll just say out of my own selfish, a page out of Paradise Valley Community College's playbook. Is Rio's been doing this for a long time. PV's been doing this for about 5 years. About 5 years ago, at least at PV, it took us longer to figure it out than it took Rio to figure it out. Is, if you have 90% of your courses in a 16-week format, if students show up the first week after that, they have to wait 15 more weeks to sign up for a course if they want to do face-to-face. In this dynamic market, we really believe that we need to provide multiple options for students to begin their learning experience. So this spring semester, system-wide, and again, this was a soft launch at a system level. We have launched a multiple start effort where we have courses strategically planned from 16 weeks, 14 weeks, 12 weeks, 10 weeks, and 8 weeks. Again, our ultimate goal with this is to marry the communications marketing engine with this dynamic, flexible start schedule so that we can change the consumer behavior so that they realize that there are other options if you missed the beginning of a 16-week semester. We have found great success for it at Paradise Valley Community College. Dr. Mose, I think our enrollment's up like 38 or 48% in late start, what we used to call late start courses, which are now referring to as flexible start. And I am convinced that if we can elevate this as a system level, this will have a dramatic impact. With the work of marketing with Rob Schwing and his team, again, a soft launch in spring of 2017, we identified students in our database who were enrolled last term but not this term, about 44,000 students, sent out emails, about 10,500 were opened. Of those, 671 enrolled, generating 1,500 credit hours, which revenue in terms of additional tuition revenue of that, and we didn't spend any money. This was all done electronically. So again, I believe that this is the power of, again, a soft launch. Not all colleges have really mobilized multiple starts. A lot of this enrollment did come to PV and to Rio and others who had these courses in the system. But this is the kind of power I think we can generate as we begin to look at scaling that up in terms of going public with that as well. And then in April, Marketing and Communications will be launching our first campaign targeting the roughly 800,000 people in the state of Arizona who have some college and no degree. And as you can see, some of the target market there, the key message is we're integrating the notion of, again, flexible start dates, and some of that is self-explanatory. And the marketing department is basically budgeted about $125,000 and our goal is to reach or to enroll 1,000 students in this particular activity. Again, a sample of the kinds of things we're doing moving forward. And again, overlapping the campaign, targeting the Latino market as well. And then lastly, and this touches on what I talked about a little bit earlier in terms of the changing dynamic that we're working with now. And again, I think I have a fairly good ground to stand on to comment on this. Is, many years ago, I as a college president wanted to recruit students to come only to Paradise Valley Community College because I was selfish, because it drove my footsie. But that might not be the right thing for students when I think about it, So we're beginning to change our mindset to say we want to recruit the right student at the right time for the right college for the right program. And that may involve me saying to a student, gee, you live halfway between PV and Scottsdale. We want the best goodness of fit. Go over and visit Scottsdale and talk to their guys. Come over and visit PV, talk to us. And, that's the power of the Maricopa system. And so we're going to try to begin to match those systems. So rather than us having all these conflicting messages out there about who and where and when to go to, is really an opportunity to really begin to have prospective students, in a sense, funneled to a more streamlined, search engine optimized, CRM integrated system. So we can help students make the right choice at the right time for the right program. And again, I believe that a rising tide raises the level of all boats, and that my enrollment at PV will go up just as it will go up at Scottsdale or just as it will go up to Glendale. A quick aside, Dr. Thor and I were talking about this today, and if you look at a contained market like Anthem, which has 33,000 residents, we've done our homework up there. About a third of those residents go to Rio, a third go to PVCC, and a third go to Glendale. So what a wonderful opportunity to not really for PV to run up there and plant our flag, but for a Maricopa presence to say, here's your 3 options for Anthem. What's best for you? And we can do that through, using our CRM tool. So basically the redeployment of the website, improved our student services with a portal, student services, and then the website will also have separate out the employee stuff in terms of that. But again, I think this is a critical change for the Maricopa Community Colleges in terms of that redeployment of the website, the integration of the CRM, and then that ability to staff and follow up with that. And then lastly, this is what we're holding ourselves accountable to. In our strategic commitments document, these are the targets the Chancellor asked us to set over the next 3 years. And so each college in the system, we look at ways in which ultimately we're going to move the needle around both new student enrollment and retention. And again, I wanted to map back to those strategic commitments. And then lastly, we will come back at a future date to talk to you about retention activities. This was just a sample that was shared. In fact, that program originated at Estrella Mountain Community College, but has been adopted by all 10 colleges and personalized to each of the colleges. And again, I just want to use this as a teaser in terms of, again, the retention piece is equally, if not more important than the recruitment piece with strategic enrollment management. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions or comments or react to concerns.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. Saar.
Well, Dr. Dell, thank you very much, because this is a major step forward when it comes to our enrollment issues. We had a discussion earlier tonight about the fact that we're losing as much as 15% since 2010 in our enrollment, which is not good. If you're a business, no different in our situation here. What I'd like to have, and a couple slides before this, where you talked about the goals you're looking for. I talk about it all the time, but one of those would be market share. I'm coming from a business background, and we've known for a couple of years now that we're losing market share to ASU and Grand Canyon and some of the private trade schools. So that in itself is a marker that I think we should have in front of us when it comes to success in this program.
Yeah, Mr. Saar, Mr. Gutierrez, members of the board, I know at PV we track, and I'm sure every other college tracks that. We do know what market share we're capturing from the cohort identified group. So each of the 8 or 9 feeder high schools that come into PV, we know every year over year, what our share of the number of graduates are. But absolutely, I think that that's something that can be elevated up to look at it at a systemic level as well, too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions? Ms. Haber.
Yes.
Could you explain a little bit more detail about the flexible start dates, how that would work?
Sure. So again, this is not going to become an enrollment workshop, but so, historically, the way we viewed higher education, Mrs. Haver, is that we have basically three experiences. We have a fall that starts in August, we have a spring that starts in January, we have summer. And historically, we've operated really with 3 start times. Again, other than Rio that starts every week. And so when you think about the mobility of Maricopa County, and we also know that the student success literature shows that, quite frankly, students tend to do better in shorter length courses because it reduces the probability that life happens. It really became apparent to us, at least at PV, and now hopefully we can grow that to the rest of the system, is that it makes sense then to distribute your learning across multiple start times so that not all of your product is in a 16-week format. So this is especially helpful for students who show up a week before school or 2 weeks before school and don't have their financial aid completed. This is helpful for students who we are holding to the fact now we don't let them attend a course after it starts. So if they show up a week before school, they miss the 16-week bus, if you will, they can catch a 14-week bus or a 12-week bus or a 10-week bus. And again, it's a challenge, and I know our faculty have been engaged with this in terms of helping us plan that, but so, for example, we wanted to distribute our Arizona General Education courses so they're not all 16 weeks, so they can come and catch them a little bit later.
So it wouldn't be putting students into classes that have already been going on for 2 or 3 weeks?
Oh, absolutely not. This would be allowing them to start afresh because they missed the ones that started at 16 weeks.
Okay. So you could plan this in such a way that you'd have enough students for these?
Well,
that'd be a challenge.
Yeah, well, part of the dynamics, and again, I think we're engaging with faculty in this process, is that in certain cases we will set artificial caps so the courses won't fill, and then once school starts, we open that up, then those seats become vacant. We've also done some negotiating during what we call go, no-go to allow lower enrollment courses to go, so we have more runway to fill those classes. Again, this is the kind of flexibility that in the past we hadn't exhibited.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Dr. Dale.
Dr. Dale, I appreciate the presentation. I think that we need to sit down and begin to really talk about how we're going to implement this. $125,000, give me a break. So we have to revisit that budget. We've known about these target populations since Chancellor Glasper. We're finally moving on them, but at that level, you're not going to make much of an impact. I congratulate you on CRM. I think that's an extraordinary tool. And I think it's extraordinary we're finally recognizing that such a thing as the web. Kids, young people get their information, be it news or information on how to enroll from the internet. And that's a tool we have not been using to the degree that we should have been. So it sounds like we're going to at least put our toe in the water in the right direction. So let's celebrate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Livingston.
President Dale, I would like to say thank you from the only one here that's actually in the classroom right now. You will make a big impact, whether it's $125,000 or $25,000, you will get somewhere. This is huge. I left today and I have students across the hall from me that have FAFSAs that have no idea where they're going to use them. Your SEM program, fabulous. What you're doing here, pushing your dual enrollment, the ACE, the HOOP, from the flexible start dates. Thank you. Zero cost to the community colleges. This is all fabulous, fabulous work, and you know this is my #1 goal, and I see this every day. This is fabulous work, and thank you very much.
Mr. Gutierrez, this is Livingston. I just want to reiterate that this, to me, really is a key of cooperation and collaboration between system levels and college. Neither one, it's not an either or, it has to be an and proposition. And it'll only be successful we can find that sweet spot where we do what's right at the system and we do what's right at the colleges. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Chancellor.
that is the end of our reports for today. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gutierrez.
My announcements as president are committee announcements. Ms. Jean McGrath to join the foundation board. Mr. Lauren Hendricks and Dr. Linda Thor at the Audit and Finance Committee for 2017, and myself for the Arizona Association of District Governing Boards. And those are the changes that I am announcing. We now move to the approval of the order of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on approval of order of the agenda. If there is, without objection, the order of the agenda is approved. Consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any items from the consent agenda?
I wish to remove, yes, on. I wish to remove 11.2 for discussion.
11.2 is removed. Is there any other, Mr. Saar?
Yeah, I would like to, for discussion purposes, also remove 11.3 and associated 11.3A.
Thank you. Any other changes in the order rather in the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. We now go to the consideration of non-consent.
No, we gotta do the two that we took off.
11.2, isn't it? 11.3. Discussion. 11.2, approving authorization by the governing board of the president's involvement in the general counsel search. Is there any discussion? Ms. Livingston?
While I know this is a necessary task that we must do, I feel there should be 2 board members on there, President Gutierrez. So I was wondering if perhaps we can put another board member on this search, not to get in the way. I personally feel that Chancellor Harper-Marinick could take care of this on her own, but if you so choose to be involved in this, I'd like another member on.
Let me clarify. The committee that we have historically done, and will do again, if this were to pass, would have 2 board members on it. I would not be on it. I would name 2 board members to this committee. That committee would recommend the finalists to the chancellor and myself, the president of the board, and to the chancellor. And that's when a final decision would be made. But there would be 2 committee board members, unless we change the process. But the process would be 2 committee board members involved in the interviews with all of the candidates.
So I'm sorry, President Gutierrez, perhaps that I'm wrong. It does say it is recommended that the governing board authorize the governing board president to initiate and complete a search. It does not state anything about choosing 2 candidates to sit in on interviews. This recommendation gives you quite a bit of power, sir.
In the discussion, it was very clear that the process that we have used in the past would be adopted. That discussion was that we would initiate the process, and the process as we initiated in concert with the chancellor would be to form a committee. The chancellor would, would choose members of the legal profession, would choose staff members, and I would designate 2 board members. That is the process that we followed in the past. And that's the process I believe, as I certainly intend to follow, and I know that in our discussions with the Chancellor, that is the process that we intend to follow.
Then why isn't it written in the recommendation?
It was discussed in the
Well, then why can't it-
agenda meeting, and so you were absent from that meeting, but it was discussed in detail.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay, then you were present for the
I was.
discussion. And you can amend this to describe whatever you would like and make a proposal to amend it.
Yes, I would like to amend it. Thank you.
And what is your amendment?
Then it would be, it is recommended that the governing board authorize 2 individuals to initiate and complete a search for general counsel in concert with the chancellor with the assistance of Human Resources and Legal Services Department.
Mr. Livingston, as I understand your concern, it is that there be 2 board members on the search committee.
Yes, sir. How
And-
about 2 board members that volunteer, not by your choice?
Excellent. So there will be 2 board members. Let me suggest that at the end of the sentence, Legal Services Department's period, we add that the president will ask for volunteers of board members, two of whom will be named to the search committee.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there a motion on that?
That was the motion, I think.
Well, I was me restating it. Somebody has to move it.
I move that it is recommended that the governing board authorize to initiate and complete a search for general counsel in concert with the chancellor and the assistance of the Human Resources and Legal Services Department
And
by 2 members who
2 board
volunteer their
members.
services.
Two board members.
2 board members. You've heard the motion as amended. Is there a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The motion carries. 11.3. 11.3 is a resolution regarding governing board fiduciary responsibilities. Let me read that resolution for the public. The governing board's fiduciary responsibilities are to monitor and steward the district and each of the colleges. Those responsibilities include speaking with the chancellor, presidents, faculty, and all staff as we feel appropriate. Everyone employed by the district is authorized to speak freely and responsibly to board members individually and in our formal sessions. Is there, Mr. Saar?
To start the discussion, I'd like to move that we accept this recommendation.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. It is now open for discussion. Mr. Saar.
I just want to make sure that people understand what this really is. In the actual document, which is 3.1A or something like that, there's a lot of whereases and so forth, and it has to do with our mission and our responsibility as governing boards to monitor the chancellor and her limitations especially. And one of the elements of that monitoring is to be able to go to the staff and make sure that each of those limitations, whether it's regarding staff or students or any part of our operational aspects of the district, are within the bounds that we've established and limitations. I don't want this to be construed that this allows staff or anybody else to circumvent the process that we already have in place for issues that really go to the chancellor. This is for the board to speak to the community, not so much a direct communication between the community and the board other than through forums like this. But we do have well-established procedures for individuals to make their case known. If it goes to the board at some point, that's fine, but if it's solved in a way through the process, that's even better. So just want to make sure that we're on the same page with this, that this is giving the board the ability to do what it's supposed to do, which is go out into the community and campuses to make sure that what's happening is in compliance with our executive limitations.
Further discussion? I would only add to that the sentence, everyone employed by the district is authorized to speak freely and responsibly to board members. I would reiterate that. I think you're correct in your interpretation, but I don't. I want that to be fully understood as well. That every employee, be he a president or be she a president or any employee of this institution, can speak openly and responsibly to us as board members. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted. We are going to item 12.1, approval. No, I'm in consent. Let me go through. Consideration of non-consent action items. 14.1, the approval of settlement agreement. Phoenix College faculty member. Chancellor?
Thank you. The item is a recommendation that the board authorize the chancellor, that's me, or designee, to prepare and execute documents necessary to resolve a claim of age discrimination asserted by a former Phoenix College faculty member for a lump sum of $110,000 in accordance with the terms that were presented to and discussed with the governing board in February, and communications from our legal counsel.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item by the board? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The next item is 15.1, approving award of contract for insurance brokerage and risk management consultant services. Vice Chancellor Murphy.
Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor, it's recommended that the governing board approve award of contract of insurance risk management consultant services to Aon Risk Solutions for a period beginning March 1st, 2017 to February 28th, 2018, with an additional 4 one-year options available for a total contract period. We had an opportunity to competitively bid our need for risk management consultant services. Aon provided the best and the final offer of $75,000. So we believe that we're going to see resulting savings of $40,000 in the first year from this new award.
You have heard the description. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 15.2, approving the final guaranteed maximum price contract amendment for construction of the Cloud Song Center at Scottsdale Community College. Vice Chancellor.
Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor, we're recommending that the governing board approve a second contract amendment to an existing construction manager at risk agreement in the amount of $11,130,000 $36,858.00. The award would be to Oakland Construction regarding the construction of the new Cloud Song Center project at Scottsdale Community College. And although I could go on and describe the project, I think President Delbert Ray and others have provided a wonderful explanation of what this project's all about, including the additional classrooms for business and for the long-awaited Indigenous Scholars Institute.
You've heard the description. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. If there is no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 15.3, approve conceptual approval for remodeling Gila Hall at Chandler Gilbert Community College at the Pecos campus. Vice Chancellor.
Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor, this is a recommendation that the governing board provide conceptual approval for the remodel of Gila Hall at Chandler Gilbert College, Pecos campus. The total project budget is $500,000. Gila Hall is now vacant space, and offices moved to the new Coyote Center and the remodeled Agave Hall. It's now requested that we go back in and renovate that space so that we can locate some closely related business offices, including the business services, institutional resources, human resources, since they work so closely together. I did want to clarify that the Gila Hall is not really that old of a building. It was constructed, I think the description says built in the 1990s. It was not. It was built in probably the mid-2000s. But it's just time because we've changed the use of that building to do some renovation.
You've heard the description. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. 15.4. These are the approval of the proposed course fee changes in the 17 and 18 budget. Vice Chancellor.
Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor, it's recommended that the governing board approve the course fees as attached. Each of the fees justified based on a particular course for a particular use. In addition to the work that's gone into the course fee changes at this point, there also is a work group looking at course fees in general for the Maricopa colleges, and I anticipate that we'll have some recommendations that will come forward, if not the end of this year, then probably for the fall semester.
You've heard the discussion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Is there a, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 15.5. The approval of tuition and fees. Vice Chancellor.
Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor, this is a recommendation to set the tuition and fees for fiscal year 2017-18. The fees in question are not course fees, but rather are district-wide fees. The issue everyone wants to know about, I'm sure, it has to do with the resident tuition rate. And at this time, there is no increase recommended for the resident tuition rate. It would remain at $86 per credit hour. For 30 credit hours, a full-time student would pay $2,580 per academic year.
You've heard the description. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on item 15.5? Dr. Thor.
I just wanted to make a comment. At agenda review, I had expressed surprise that, and I'm referencing Table 2, tuition comparison with other Arizona community colleges. I'd expressed surprise that there were now 3 districts that were charging resident tuition at a higher rate than Maricopa. And my apologies to Vice Chancellor Murphy. It's one of the things I forgot to talk to you about earlier. But in my review of the web, I found that there in reality is only one district that's charging a higher tuition than Maricopa, and that's Coconino. And I can share that with you earlier. But I bring it up because I think for the public record, we need to not misrepresent where we stand in comparison to other districts.
Mr. Gutierrez, Dr. Thor, thank you very much. We'll be happy to take a look at this sometimes. We'll be happy to take a look at this.
Thank you. Mr. Saar.
The one thing I bring up every year is that we don't have a cap on tuition as ASU does, for example. It's $86 a credit whether you take 3 credits or 18 credits.
Mr. Gutierrez, Mr. Saar, there is no ceiling on tuition. It's per credit hour.
Right. We get that question asked a lot of times, if I take 18, do I only pay for 15 like I do for ASU? And that is not the case in our situation.
Mr. Gutierrez, Mr. Saar, that is correct.
Is there any further discussion? Over here. Ms. Livingston.
I'd like to thank Chancellor Harper-Marinick and the business office for keeping it at $86 and not making any sort of recommendation to go higher. I know a lot of students that would be very, very happy. Thanks.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item 16.1, proposed deletion, governing board policy, developmental ed. Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. As has been discussed in policy committee meetings, we have gone through a revision of governing board outcomes, and in this case, it's developmental education. So the practice is that we submit to you a deletion of what has been in place. That's one item, and then the next item is what the new language looks like. So items 16.1 and 16.2 are related.
You have heard the description. Is there a motion?
I move we accept the deletion of our existing developmental ed policy.
Is there a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on item 16.1?
Mr. Gutierrez, if I may.
Chancellor?
This is a first reading only.
Correct.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So there's no motion to approve?
I see.
Because we'll bring it back. Typically, when we develop policy, it takes the two steps, with first
I
reading
see.
and then approval. Thank you.
It says first reading right there. 16.2. This is a continuation of the earlier discussion. Chancellor.
So 16.2 is the proposed new language. 16.1 deletes the existing language, and 16.2 proposes the new language as we had presented during the policy committee meetings. So the two items are related, and both are coming to you for first reading, and then we'll be back to request approval.
Is there any discussion? 16.2. Mr. Saar.
I chair the policy committee, and we've had discussions now since December and part into November on developmental ed. We've had people come in and talk to us about some of the successes that we've had and successes that other institutions are having along those lines. We wanted to make sure that we were in line with those when it comes to identifying the outcome that we're looking for in developmental ed, or other names that are sometimes associated with that. I think what we've put in place now is a broad enough description of what we want to see happen, not just in terms of the number of students who are entering developmental ed, but more importantly, those that go through the process and succeed in developmental ed courses, but more importantly, succeed in those ensuing courses which they actually get credit for. And I think I want to thank Dr. Dale and all his staff and others who have worked well on this particular item to make sure that we have existing measurements for success, which we have, and I look forward to implementing this over the course of the next school year to find out if we are making progress based on some of the activities that are ongoing in the district regarding developmental ed.
Further discussion? Thank you. If not, we move on to 17.1. Review proposed fiscal year budget. Vice Chancellor.
Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor, this is the budget presented as an information item. It is we're proposing a budget of $1,370,539,616. We had quite a lengthy discussion in our Budget and Finance Committee, subcommittee of the board, led by Dr. Thor. And at that time, the governing board members present suggested that we go back and look at potential for adding, for requesting that the colleges provide information on some of their critical needs. And we'll be doing that and presenting that to the Budget and Finance Committee or a special committee of the board at a future date to help in development of a final budget for adoption.
You've heard the discussion. If not, this item was information only. We move on to the next item, the Budget Analysis Report, Fund 1. Did you want to make a comment, Chancellor?
I didn't. I think it was Dr. Thor, but I think what you were probably going to say is that we skipped the human resources item. So that's 18.1, Mr. Gutierrez.
Well,
She's reading my mind.
she is reading your mind. I moved this a little too fast. Employments and separation. Ms. Basil.
Hi, yes, good evening, Mr. Gutierrez, members of the board, Chancellor Barbara Basil, Associate Vice Chancellor for Human Resources. I'd like to review the separations and hires for the period of January 2017. During this period, there were 58 separations and 69 hires. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
You've heard the description. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. McGrath.
We are losing students, and I'm wondering how we managed to have 58 separation and 69 hires when we apparently don't need as many people as we used to.
Ms. Basil.
President Gutierrez, Mrs. McGrath. Each president and vice chancellor has been charged with ensuring the vacant positions are evaluated on a need to fill basis. The presidents and vice chancellors are required to review each position and determine the true needs of the position and the impact on serving students before moving forward with that. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, but that's the best I have today.
Ms. McGrath.
Mr. Gutierrez, I'm wondering if perhaps in the future we could have notations as to why we need more hires than we have separations, and have a justification for this, because in lieu of the fact that we have lost quite a few students, I see no need for this. I think that this is unnecessary spending. Thank you.
Ms. Basil, you will take that into
I will
consideration.
convey that to my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we're at 19.1. This is the fun part. Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor. This is the budget analysis summary for the 7 months of fiscal year 16-17. This would be through January. And there are no exceptional either revenues or expenditures to report. Everything's going within limits for our expenditures this year. And we are happy to maintain the governing board's contingency balance of $900,000.
You've heard the description. Is there a discussion? Just let me add on that the contingency is being held until further discussion. It is not being held in any final basis. 19.2, general obligation bonds. Ms. Murphy.
Mr. Gutierrez, board members, Chancellor, this is a report on the general obligation bond status as we move through the end of the available bond resources that were approved in 2004. We've spent $894.3 million through December 31st, 2016. That makes approximately 94% of the proceeds. We only have a few projects left. Probably the largest one is the one the board viewed tonight with the Sky Song at the project at Scottsdale.
You've heard the description. Is there any discussion? If not, we move on to the next item, which is employee group reports. There is, my notation is that the faculty executive council is not making a report this evening. Is that correct? The Adjunct Faculty Association, Ms. Haas. Welcome back.
Thank you. You all have been doing so much business, I feel like I'm a little bit from another planet. President Gutierrez, members of the board, Dr. Harper-Marinick, members of the CEC, guests, I am Patricia Gale Haas, president of the Adjunct Faculty Association. Last Saturday, the AFA hosted, in conjunction with Maricopa Center for Learning and Instruction, hosted the LED Learning and Engagement Adjunct Development Conference at South Mountain. This was the first time we've been to South, and it turned out to be an ideal venue. We would like to thank South for graciously hosting us, and it was not easy. They're a busy place on Saturday mornings. They also gave us a very generous supply of swag, and there was something for everyone. I did refrain from picking up one of the I Am a Cougar t-shirts. I wasn't sure how that would go over. But I think that contributed a great deal to the energized climate of the conference. For the first time, a past member of the board was our keynote speaker. Dr. Doyle Burke brought a well-organized explanation of the institutional knowledge to the adjuncts, and it was very well received. He explained some of the changes in growth, some of the changes in funding, and future strategic planning. The adjuncts responded very well to his warm style, and they also asked questions that were really heartfelt, like how to navigate and do your job well with so much change and turmoil. And they weren't talking just about the district, but in the country and the world in general. He talked about shifting demographics and systemic changes. It was gratifying to see how strongly the audience responded to Mr. Burke's presentation. Because the adjuncts are only connected through email, we built some social time into the conference. At the close, we hosted a mocktail hour and had adjuncts sit with their school reps, but we added a twist. This time the tables were arranged by the suggested and proposed regions. This turned out very positively as they spontaneously discussed becoming a region. The exchange was intriguing as they talked about their own school's climate and speculated as to what it might mean to become a region. There are programs such as Adjunct Academy or Institute at Gateway and Edge at Paradise have paved the way for extended professional development. Phoenix and South are participating in building similar programs and all have a vision for growing. I also want to recognize the Centers for Teaching and Learning. They are currently kicking off their spring training, and they have an extensive program that's fabulous called CTL Near You, which means that adjuncts are invited and welcome to go to any workshop at any campus. They may teach. We have adjuncts that live by Australia and teach at Chandler Gilbert. And so the convenience of being able to go to a workshop that's located by their home is huge. So we're working on getting the word out. I would like to also give a shout out to Maricopa Center for Teaching and Learning. They're down a lot of staff, and this is a program that the chancellor is responsible for, and it's just huge. I think it should be recognized across the district as this focus to get adjuncts trained and to meet the needs of what they see. And I would like to recognize Stephanie Williams and Don Jensen Bodilla, who are both working very hard to fill the needs of adjuncts. And they're such good listeners, and they're very creative and figuring out ways to be effective. And one of the most important things we want to do is figure out how to get adjuncts connected to all the opportunities that are being offered, how to incentivize them, how to make things feasible, how to put them online so that they can access them. And so the AFA appreciates the support of MCLI, of the district through the MCLI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hess. It was wonderful to hear about Mr. Burke's participation. He is one extraordinary fellow. Thank you.
We're going to have him back again. They almost didn't let him out the door.
I know how they feel. Got ahead of myself again. Employee and constituency group reports. Ms. Bliss.
Good evening. I realized when I was sitting down that it's Fat Tuesday today. So I apologize for not bringing my beads with me to hand out to y'all, but don't have any this evening. I do, however, have a presentation, so I'm going to open that up really quickly. I am not a good PowerPoint person. Eee. Oops. Thank you. Right up here. All right, thank you so much. I fully admit that I don't PowerPoint. I've turned PowerPoint into a verb and I don't do it. So I fully acknowledge that that's a thing. I also don't math, and it's interesting because my mom's a math teacher and my dad's an engineer. So anyway, President Gutierrez, members of the governing board, Chancellor Harper-Marinick, members of CEC, and guests. I am presenting on behalf of the Classified Staff Council. Thank you, governing board members, for the resolution you passed earlier this evening, providing clarification that you are welcoming feedback from employees in open session. It provides me the ability and wherewithal to comfortably speak about the matter I'm here to present. Chancellor Harper-Marinick, thank you for inviting feedback at the State of the District and the upcoming town halls, and for reiterating the values you hold: inclusion, transparency, accountability, and respect for other people. While we have been attempting to work with administration directly to resolve problems, we very much appreciate your invitation to communicate with you directly, particularly as some concerns have developed regarding our working relationship with administration. We, the Classified Staff Council, and I as a representative, welcome this opportunity to address those concerns in an effort to assist you in your duties to monitor and steward. The framework for tonight's report is a statement found in the district's strategic commitments document. I'm going to read it. As an employer, Maricopa County Community Colleges embraces an organizational culture committed to supporting, developing, and growing its most tangible and valuable asset, the employees who make up its diverse and talented workforce. These strategic commitments will be achieved in a culture of collaboration, conversation, and communication focused on increasing employee diversity, inclusion, satisfaction, growth, and performance, having a positive impact on both the workplace and our communities. Unfortunately, we have identified a pattern of behavior that appears to be inconsistent with these strategic commitments, and we wish to bring these concerns to your attention in the hope that they may be amicably resolved through a recommitment to the culture of collaboration and mutual respect. We would appreciate your leadership and direction in that regard. As you are aware, the Classified Staff Council is a relatively new structure, and significant efforts were made to develop that structure, including a constitution and bylaws governing the role and procedures of the council. These governing documents make clear the elected members of the council are responsible for presenting the interests of employees in the district's system of shared governance. As such, it is essential that the council is able to communicate freely and openly with the employees whose interests it is charged with representing. In some of the upcoming slides, you will see copies of emails that are affecting our ability to abide by our Constitution and represent employees. Due to the parameters of PowerPoint, they will be hard to read for the audience. However, I have provided full-size copies of the documents to the Governing Board. This slide, as mentioned earlier, Governing Board, you can access this on page 8 of your packet. I gave you each a manila folder with the documents included in the PowerPoint presentation. This is an email exchange between the CSC Communications Officer and Special Projects Assistant to the Vice Chancellor of Human Resources. The VCHR has delegated the oversight of the CSC officers to her Special Projects Assistant. This exchange is regarding the CSC Officer Distribution List, which is one of the primary methods of communication with the CSC officers regarding the business of the Council. In 2016, when the new Classified Staff Council was formed and the officers were elected, one task was to create an email distribution list to provide for effective internal communication between, with, and among the officers and constituents. The Special Projects Assistant to the Vice Chancellor of Human Resources created this list, and unbeknownst to us, she had the ability to monitor the communications between and among the officers and constituents. We discovered this in October 2016 when the Special Projects Assistant replied to an email that was sent to the officer distribution list. In the past, with former employee groups, HR was never an owner or manager of email distribution lists, nor in receipt of any emails from said lists. The ability to monitor communications that the council officers reasonably believe to be confidential creates distrust rather than the organizational culture of collaboration, conversation, and communication to which the district aspires. Moreover, although we have requested that the Special Projects Assistant transfer exclusive ownership of the distribution list to the officers so that she does not have access, she has yet to do so. She has failed to acknowledge our concerns about the chilling effect her access has on effective communication between and among the officers and has claimed incorrectly that her role in administering the list is necessary to maintain continuity. Similarly, the Special Projects Assistant has attempted to assert control over the discretionary decisions that are provided to the Classified Staff Council by the Constitution and bylaws to the elected council members. One of my responsibilities under the Classified Staff Council Constitution and bylaws is to identify individuals to represent classified staff perspectives on a variety of district committees. Beginning in December of 2016, the Special Projects Assistant to the Vice Chancellor of Human Resources directed me to remove a properly appointed individual from a committee on the grounds that the individual was not an elected member of the council. The Constitution and bylaws do not require classified staff committee representatives to be elected representatives of the Classified Staff Council, and there are many reasons why it might be more effective or efficient for a particular committee to be staffed by someone who is not also serving on the council. More importantly, the Constitution and bylaws do not give administration representatives any say in the Classified Staff Council's decisions regarding who to appoint to committees, much less the authority to control those decisions. I therefore decline to rescind the appointment. After more than 2 months of repeated strong disagreement, the Special Projects Assistant ordered me to remove this duly appointed representative. Although she reconsidered and rescinded that order shortly thereafter, the fact that she spent nearly 3 months attempting to assert authority she did not possess, going so far as to frame her direction as an order with which I would have to comply or face discipline for insubordination, seriously undermines the relationship of trust and mutual respect that is essential to the shared governance system we have adopted. The Division of Human Resources created this Classified Staff Council to ensure that employee voice was heard and respected, but their behavior has not conveyed a commitment to those principles. The last matter involves what appears to be tampering with the content and signatures of a written agreement entered into by then current employee group leaders and the administration, as highlighted by the next several slides. In 2015, employee group leaders entered into a voluntary MOU with administration to develop a RIF policy for all classified staff. As you can see in version 1, the signatures of the employee group leaders are dated February 2015. After significant delay, the Vice Chancellor of Human Resources signed the documents 4 months later in June 2015 and added some strikeouts to the negotiated language. In October 2015, the new employee group leaders requested a clean copy of the MOU be created and signed by the current leaders. This document, shown here as version 2, was created and signed by all parties in the VCHR February 26, 2016. Our understanding was this new agreed to and signed MOU would be uploaded and become a part of the staff policy manual effective upon signature of the VCHR, as confirmed to in an email to all then current employee group leaders in March of 2016. Recently, a document referred to here as version 3 was discovered online and apparently has been incorporated into the staff policy manual as Appendix F. As you can see, the date is from 2015, and yet some of the language is from the document I identify as version 2. The document signed in 2016. None of the employee group leaders signed the document presented here, yet their signatures and dates, which match those affixed to version 1 that they signed in 2015, appear with it as though they signed and agreed to version 3. It appears as though some effort was made to cut and paste signatures from one document to the other, but the language on which the signatures were affixed is not the language that the signers actually reviewed and therefore ratified. When this matter was discovered earlier this month, February 2017, I, as CSC president, asked for an explanation by District Office Human Resources, but I have yet to receive one. This is a serious matter, and the lack of explanation or correction is very troubling. All three of these examples raise serious concerns regarding HR's commitment to work productively and respectfully with the council members who have been charged with providing employee input into the district's system of shared governance. If employees are Maricopa's, quote, most tangible and valuable asset, unquote, as this board's strategic plan indicates, then conduct that seeks to monitor and control their representatives, ignores their input, and violates the district commitments to them risks devaluing this asset and destroying the culture of collaboration we have worked so hard to build. I hope what I have shown tonight gives the governing board pause and conviction that these actions and behaviors need to be looked into with much greater depth and independence by someone not beholden to the internal administrative power structure. And in the meantime, I ask that you take whatever interim steps you believe necessary and appropriate to make your strategic commitments to protect your employee assets from this mismanagement. Staff morale, engagement, support, and respect are critical to achieve student success. We, as CSC representatives and officers, entered into this venture this year with the expressed intention that HR would be our partner and that things would be better than before. We entered this relationship believing in good faith, and we remain willing to act in good faith, but we need to see that good faith taking place on both sides of this relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bliss. Is there any discussion? Ms. Bliss, just let me say that some of the allegations before us are scandalous and explosive. They require a serious investigation. They require a serious discussion by this board. They require action to assure that, one, if in fact they occur no longer. Two, one of the allegations constitutes forgery. It constitutes, it's beyond forgery. I mean, it requires a course in Photoshop at HR. Because if in fact this happens, it's really poorly done. On the other hand, HR deserves an opportunity to address this. I can assure you that I will schedule a discussion for this board on next steps. And I personally believe it does have to be looked into. It does have to be looked into independently of the administration, because the allegation is specific to HR and the administration. But that is a discussion for the majority of the board, or excuse me, a decision for the majority of the board at a future time that we can schedule such a discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you got me all rattled and put everything away. Now I gotta go find it. Thankfully, Dr. Thor is always knows what's going on. Community linkage. Governing board reports. Dr. Thor.
I really hate to follow that. Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. It's been an extremely busy month for me. I did have the opportunity to visit all 10 colleges, the last one just being completed this afternoon when I visited Paradise Valley Community College. And just as each of our colleges is unique, so were the visits unique. They each were structured differently, with a different format and a different focus. But what I found to be consistent is the fact that we are blessed with very dedicated and knowledgeable employees at all of the locations. And I found the colleges to all be laser focused on student success. I also had the opportunity to have briefings this past month by all of the divisions with the exception of Human Resources, and that one is scheduled for next week. I also had the honor to make presentations on opportunities and challenges facing the Maricopa Community Colleges to community groups both in Sun City Grand and also at Dobson Ranch in Mesa. And I'm pleased to report that community support for our colleges in those two communities is very high. I also joined Mr. Gutierrez and Mr. Saar in attending the Arizona Asian Chamber of Commerce Lunar New Year Banquet, which was fabulous. And finally, along with the Chancellor, Mr. Saar and Mr. Hendricks, I attended the National Legislative Summit in Washington, D.C. on February 13th through the 16th, and we were able to meet with most members of our congressional delegation or with members of their staff. And we talked to them about the importance of reinstating year-round Pell Grants for our students, for more funding for workforce development, and for our support of DACA students. That concludes my report.
Mr. Saar.
In relationship to going to Washington, D.C., it was an interesting place this year. This is my 7th year, and I think it was a totally different atmosphere for lots of reasons, and we'll see the results as time progresses. But I do want to thank our congressional representatives for taking the time to speak with us. It was very enlightening from the senators to our congressmen and women. We did spend time with the Department of Labor while we were there, and while we were there, actually, there was not a secretary at the time they were waiting for confirmation when we were sitting in the room of the secretary, which was empty. It was nice to be sitting there with an empty room, but we now have a Secretary of Labor, and the questions that we brought to them were dealing with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA is what's known. And we use it quite often, especially in our adult basic education and other elements of our offerings here in the Valley. But there are numerous ways that we can take more advantage of those fundings that other colleges and universities around the country are doing. And the cooperation that we got from that staff group that was there, they were very excited to have us there. There were other colleges that got there prior to us. But they one of the first times that they've really had a chance to speak directly with board members and administrators of community colleges, and they look forward to really enhancing that communication and the services that the Labor Department provides for us. So I look forward to that myself.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ms. Haber?
Yes, I had not that active of a month, to be honest, but I was able to attend, along with Mr. Gutierrez and Mrs. McGrath, the Black History Month celebration at Paradise Valley Community College. And that was the first time for me to attend, because the other years there was always a conflict because I went to the ACCT conference in D.C., but this year there was no conflict, but I didn't go anywhere because I had other things I had to do. But at the Black History Month luncheon, we received really excellent food, of course, and there were gospel singers there who I felt were very inspiring. I think probably both Mrs. McGrath and Mr. Gutierrez would agree with me on that. So it was a really good event, and I hope to go again next year.
Thank you, Ms. Haber. Ms. McGrath. Excuse me, Ms. McGrath. Mrs. Livingston. Then Mrs. McGrath.
I had the pleasure the week after they were there in Washington, D.C., to attend a conference to speak to many group leaders on, it's called CPAC, K-12 education and beyond. And I was honored to be there and represent all of you.
Ms. McGrath.
Thank you, President Gutierrez. I, too, enjoyed the Paradise Valley Community College Black History Month celebration. I loved the singers. My only disappointment was they did not sing any songs by two very outstanding black hymn writers, Tom Dorsey and Andre Crouch. And I asked them, why didn't you sing one of those songs, one of those afterwards? I said, why didn't you sing Precious Lord, Tom Crosby's very famous song? She said, that's my father's favorite song. So she said, next time. Thank you.
Well, you heard from the others what I did. I ate a lot of Asian food, and then I ate a lot of barbecue. And I spilled a barbecue all over my shirt. And this is true. That was an evening of a board meeting, so I had to rush home and get a clean shirt. As Mrs. Thor pointed, or Dr. Thor pointed out, it's lucky I own two shirts. So I also had occasion with Mr. Saar to get a presentation in the new makerspace possibility downtown by President Gonzalez and Vice President Gupster. It was very compelling, and I really ask every board member if they possibly can to do that. It's much more compelling, and it brings it home in a much more clearer fashion than simply reading the documents and getting a description of what it would be and what it looks like. I thought it was very, very useful. External community reports. Arizona School Board Association, Mr. Saar.
No report.
Association of Community College Trustees, Mr. Saar.
Just the fact that we just completed the National Legislative Summit and looking forward to going to Las Vegas for the Congress in September.
They have gambling there.
I've been told that.
Yeah. I understand that to be true. The Arizona Association of District Governing Boards, I am the new designee to that board, and I will be attending my first meeting on March 9th at Mesa Community College, and I will report on the activities of that on the subsequent board meeting. The last item before us is the establishment of next meeting dates, times, and places. March 14th, 2017, 4 p.m., Policy Committee, Governing Boardroom. At 5 p.m., Agenda Review. March 14th at 6 p.m., an executive or work session. March 28th, Budget and Finance Committee meeting at 5 p.m. March 28th, regular board meeting at 6:30 p.m. and an executive session if needed. Based on our discussion earlier and the presentation today, there may be we may be discussing special meetings and executive meetings as well. In addition to those dates posted, you can find those online, of course. If there is no further discussion, we will stand adjourned. The board is scheduled to go into executive session downstairs immediately after this meeting.